My evening unraveled the moment the doorbell pierced through the quiet like a distant echo of a memory I never asked to recall. I'd been comfortably slouched on my couch, half lost in an old adventure movie, reveling in the simplicity of on-screen drama, explosions drowning out complicated dialogue, when that chime rattled the fragile peace I'd built for myself. I wasn't expecting anyone, certainly not her. A cautious glance through the peephole confirmed what my instincts had already whispered. It was Emily, the very woman who had, for better or worse, redefined my understanding of betrayal. The same woman I'd painstakingly evaded 3 years ago, after her decisions left me with none of my own. Part of me wanted to pretend I wasn't home, but someone who'd tracked me down this determinately wouldn't be discouraged by a locked door and silence. With a sigh that felt heavier than usual, I slid the chain free and opened up just enough for our gazes to meet. Despite the time that had passed, she looked much the same, though shadows of weariness clung to her expression. Maybe she finally grasped the weight of regret. Or maybe not. I'd stopped guessing her thoughts a long time ago. "What do you want?" I asked, my tone deliberately sharp. Each word was a small blade, polished and practiced. She had the nerve to offer a wisp of a smile, a faint flicker of the same charm that once lured me in like a moth dancing too close to a lantern. "To talk," she said. I folded my arms, leaning against the doorframe. Wasn't my departure pretty clear? "I'm not interested, Emily. Not now, not ever." Her smile faltered. "I have no idea why you left, James. I came home and you were just gone. No note. No explanation." A humorless laugh escaped me. "Really? You can't think of a single reason? You heard me that night, when I told you exactly what I'd do if you went through with it." She drew in a breath. "Can I come in?" 100 thoughts battled in my mind, but in the end, I sighed again, heavier this time. Perhaps it was better to get this over with. I opened the door the rest of the way and stepped aside, watching her move into my living room as though she had every right to be there. "Got any water?" she asked, her voice oddly soft. The audacity. But I shrugged, heading into the kitchen, my thoughts drifting back to that night. The night that changed our story from ours to mine alone. It had been an ordinary weekday. I came home from the office, expecting the same rhythm of routine. But everything shifted the moment I saw her in our living room, dressed to the nines in a sleek black outfit I'd never seen before. The kind you wear when you want to make a statement. "Didn't know we had plans," I said, tossing my keys on the counter. "We don't," she replied, smoothing the dress in a nervous gesture. "I have a date tonight." I paused, a half-formed grin on my face as I tried to decide if I'd misheard. "A date with who, exactly?" She shrugged, her tone annoyingly casual. "You don't know him. His name's Brandon. He's from work. There's a birthday gathering for Tessa, and he asked me to go along." "Does this Brandon know you're married?" My voice stayed calm, but I felt a storm gathering behind my ribs. "It's not that big of a deal, James," she insisted. "Nothing's going to happen. I just didn't want to show up alone, and you've always refused to go to Tessa's parties." My laugh was hollow, tinged with bitterness. "So you're telling me some coworker is more important than your own husband?" She rolled her eyes. "It's just a party. I'm tired of going to these things solo. You hate Tessa. Remember? Tessa, the friend whose track record made me cringe. Divorced multiple times, too many whispers about questionable behavior. Her gatherings were famous for all the wrong reasons. I don't go because of exactly that," I reminded her, voice rising. "I don't want you around Tessa's nonsense. You've heard the rumors, same as me. You know the kind of trouble that brews at those events. She's my best friend since childhood." Emily shot back, arms folded. "I'm not cutting her off just because you don't like her parties. You're ignoring why I don't like her," I snarled. "Tessa's never treated fidelity as anything but a punchline. I don't want you mixed up in that crowd, especially wearing—" I gestured to her attire. "That." Her eyes flashed. "What's that supposed to mean?" "You know exactly what it means," I said, stepping closer. "You got dressed up for someone else. There's only one reason you'd make that kind of effort for another man." Emily's cheeks burned red, Whether from anger or guilt, I couldn't tell. That's unfair. You're accusing me of something I haven't even done. Yet, I corrected, voice sharp. And you're walking out the door to do it. Don't tell me it's not on your mind. Tessa's told you enough tales about her so-called fun. This is exactly what she's been trying to talk you into for years. She drew herself up, fists clenched. I'm just going to a party. Don't wait up. She turned on her heel and made for the door, but I refused to let it end without a final warning. Emily, if you walk out tonight, you're ending this marriage. I'm not bluffing. She faltered only for a moment. Then she squared her shoulders and left. The click of the door was as final as a judge's gavel. Goodbye, Emily, I whispered to the silence she left behind. I tried to steady myself, but a storm raged inside. I paced our apartment for hours, clinging to a slim, desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, she'd come home early, sorry for the whole thing. But that hope disintegrated when my phone rang around 1 in the morning. Hello? I answered, groggy and uneasy. The voice on the other end oozed triumph. Tessa. Did I wake you, James? What do you want? I snapped. A cruel laugh echoed through the receiver. Just wanted you to know your lovely wife has found some company tonight. My heart pounded. What are you talking about? Let me give you a taste, she teased. Then came the unmistakable sound of intimacy. Voices, muffled pleas followed by Emily's own exclamation, half lost in the chaos. I felt my entire world tilt, my knees buckling as if the floor had dissolved beneath me. Tessa's mocking laugh carried on. She's enjoying herself, James. Guess she finally decided to follow my advice and live a little. I didn't answer. Couldn't. I hung up, letting the phone clatter to the ground. It rang again, of course it did, but I couldn't bring myself to pick up. By 3 in the morning, I'd packed everything that mattered into my truck. By 9, I'd emptied our joint accounts, quit my job on the spot, and by noon I'd ditched my phone for a prepaid one. Just like that, I cut away my old life. 3 years drifted by in a blur. I ended up in Golden Valley, a serene corner of Washington where no one knew me and no one asked questions. The job I found was decent, the folks kept to themselves, and my personal life stayed pleasantly uncomplicated. Until tonight, when she showed up and shattered the quiet I'd carved out of the chaos. I handed Emily a glass of water, curiosity prickling at the back of my mind. Part of me wanted to hear how she'd spin her tale, what excuse she'd cooked up to rationalize what she'd done. She took a sip, then let out a shaky breath. You need to know, I never intended to betray you, James. I scoffed, arms crossed. Didn't seem too unintentional from my end. She bit her lip. I was set up, Tessa gave me something that night. She paused, tears gathering in her eyes. Everything after that was a blur. I only remember bits and pieces, a crowded room, too many people, and I felt like I couldn't think straight. The next morning, I realized my drink had been tampered with. I went straight to the hospital and reported it. I said nothing, my expression guarded. I'd learned not to trust her words. I took Tessa to court, she continued, voice trembling. I sued her, Brandon, everyone involved. Tessa's lies caught up to her. She lost her house in the process. Brandon paid me a settlement. That's how I found you. I hired someone to track you down. I stared at the woman who used to be my wife, who once swore to stand by me. Why? To fix things, she whispered. I still love you, James. The weight of those words hung in the air like smoke, refusing to dissipate. At last, I shook my head. You're 3 years too late. She began to cry, quiet, steady tears. I was a victim, James. I never wanted that night to happen the way it did. It's not just about that night, Emily, I said, exhaling slowly. It's about every choice that led to it. You didn't betray me just in that moment. You betrayed me when you walked out our door after I warned you. You knew what Tessa was capable of and you still went. Her tears were flowing freely now, streaking her makeup. I didn't cheat on you. Not willingly. I stood up, patience fraying. You made the decision to prioritize that party and Tessa over our marriage. I asked you not to go. I begged you to distance yourself from someone so toxic. You chose her anyway. Emily rose from the couch, chin trembling. You're supposed to fight for me. For us. I shook my head. I was willing to fight for you, Emily, until you walked away that night. You made your choice. Her face hardened. I'm not granting you a divorce if that's what you're after. I'll fight for us even if you won't. Fight for what? I countered, voice low. There's no us. There hasn't been since you stepped out that door. At that precise moment, the front door opened. Rachel walked in, blonde hair catching the warm light like a promise. She smiled when she saw me, her voice bright and easy. Hey, I'm back, she called cheerfully, then halted when she noticed Emily. Oh, hello. I nodded at Emily. Rachel, this is Emily. She's an acquaintance from my past. Rachel offered Emily a sunny smile, so genuine it hurt. Nice to meet you, Emily. Thanks for letting James go. I don't know what I'd do without him. Emily stiffened, anger flickering in her eyes. But Rachel turned to me before she could respond. I'm starving. You up for some dinner? We've got that reservation at Madison's, I reminded her, checking my watch. Rachel's grin widened. Perfect. I'll get changed. She glanced politely at Emily. Nice meeting you. Maybe we'll talk some other time, compare notes. With that, she disappeared down the hall. Emily whirled on me, voice shaking. Does she know we're still married? She does, I replied calmly. She's in the same predicament, her own ex refuses to sign papers. Strange how life aligns sometimes. Emily's eyes filled again, tears brimming with disbelief. Why are you doing this? I was set up, James. My drink was spiked. I didn't betray you willingly. You still don't see it, I said, my tone as cold as winter. It's not about that night alone. It's about every step that brought you there. She opened her mouth to argue, but I cut her off. You knew exactly what Tessa was pushing you toward. You chose to ignore me. You chose to leave our home. And here you are, thinking you can just rewrite the past with explanations and tears. But I'm not the man you left, Emily. Her voice wavered as she tried to steady herself. I was wrong, James. But I thought if I told you the truth. I shook my head. You wasted your time and money. You won your suit, so take that and move on. There's nothing left here for you. Rachel emerged then, radiant in a casual outfit, the simplest clothing somehow looking elegant on her. She flashed me a playful smirk. James, you're still not dressed? We're just finishing up, I told her. Emily exhaled, tears falling anew. Then, abruptly, she stormed out without another word. Rachel listened as the door slammed, glancing at me with raised brows. Gone for good. She should be, I murmured. I don't expect her to come back. Rachel slipped her hand through my arm. Good, she teased, leaning close, her breath warming the air between us. Because I'm sure not letting you get away, James. I allowed myself a small smile. Some doors, once shut, are better left locked. I grabbed my jacket and together we headed out. Behind us, the house exhaled in silence and I caught myself thinking about how strange it was that you can love someone enough to share a life with them, yet everything can vanish in a single choice. And once the choice is made, there's no going back.